All right, so now we're going to go ahead and jump over to my command screen. All right, so basically where I'm at here is I'm in my opportunities, okay? And this is the dashboard that you're going to come into for the first time, all right? If you don't know where that is at, over on the left-hand side, you're going to see the red KW button. So when you click on it, here it's going to open up all the different applets for you to be able to jump into within command. All right, so we're going to click over onto the opportunities applet, and that's where it's going to take us into our opportunities. All right, now when you come into opportunities here, you can do you can create the opportunity from one of two ways. You can create the opportunity for your client from the contact card, or you can create the opportunity from the dashboard here. All right. What I will do is I'll show you from the contact card what that looks like. Now, have all of you guys, well, I'm going to tell all of you guys, please create yourself as a contact in command. All right. And the reason for that is because if you're not practicing on yourself, then you're practicing on your clients, and we don't want that to happen. So put yourself in as a client. Use a personal email address. Don't use your KW email address. And the reason for that is because, you know, if you want to see what a smart plan looks like, or if you want to see what the monthly neighborhood smart plan looks like, you can kind of test that out on yourself first, so you can see what those emails and text messages look like when they're being sent out. All right. So as you see here, I have myself created as a contact. I have my phone number, my email address. You see how I have some smart plans that are already current. So I just practice on these smart plans, and I just test them out on myself just to kind of see what they look like. You know, and I would highly suggest you end up doing the same thing. You know, even with regard to the monthly neighborhood smart plan, you can see what that looks like when that gets emailed out to your clients. All right, so I'm going to, in here in the contact card, if I were to click opportunities, you can see that I already have James set up as a opportunity, and he's in my test opportunity. But if you did not have him set up in an opportunity, you can always create. So up here on this right-hand side, I would go ahead and click create opportunity. And then here it's basically going to open up. I fill out the information for my market center. If you are on a team, you can go ahead and click on the team and from the pull down window. If any of you are in the productivity coaching groups, you will be on a productivity coaching team. So this is really important for you guys. You're going to have two accounts. One is going to be your personal account, and one is going to be the productivity coaching account. Your market centers are going to be different from Cherry Hills, Robbinsville, to Morristown, to Marlton, Medford. So just make sure you talk to your coaches to making sure that they are either utilizing this or they're not utilizing this. I know at Marlton and Medford, we are utilizing this because it's easy for the productivity coach to be able to track your deals and to be able to assist you when you switch this over to the team, all right? Over here at the opportunity type, this is self-explanatory. You're going to basically change it to whatever your opportunity is. So if you're dealing with a seller, you're going to change it to the seller, to the buyer, landlord, or the tenant. Keep in mind, though, whatever you choose, if I were to click on buyer and I were to create, and I realize that I made the mistake and it's not a buyer, he's actually a seller, that's it. This opportunity has been created, so you're going to have to archive this opportunity because you can't come back in here and change this over to a listing. All right, so everyone follow me with that? Great. So here I'm going to be the owner of the opportunity, so I would click on my name. I would find my client. So I would just, choose the pull down window and I can type in his name. But because I'm coming from the contact card itself, it will automatically pull in his name for you. Now, if there was a co-seller, I can click on here and type in that person's name and it will pull in the other contact. So if I were to pull in another James and I can say James Ting, he would be the co-seller in this opportunity. Now, when you're dealing with a listing, you know what the home address is. So if you know what the home address is, because you're listing the property, so you should know, you're just going to change this over to the name of the street. And the reason for that is because once the opportunity is created and it goes into the system, that's how your market center is going to be able to track and find the documents as you start uploading them. All right. If you're on the buyer side, well, then you don't know what the property is until you go under contract with it. So you can always come back into this area later on and change the name. But at some point, you do want to change this from the name of the opportunity of the contact over to the name of the property address. All right. Here where the custom tags are, so what I have done, and I'll kind of jump into this in a different section of this demonstration, but basically if you know certain tags that you want to use, like if you already know what title company that they're going to be using, you can go ahead and click on that. If you know how they're going to be financing the property, whether it's going to be FHA, conventional, cash, or VA, you can put that in there as well too. If you have certain attorneys, your lenders, I have different tags for pre-qualification, pre-approval, proof of funds, and I'll show you why all of this is important, okay? So estimated close date, if you're on the buyer side, I probably put this out anywhere between 3 months to 6 months. So if you're on the seller side, I probably put it anywhere between 30 and 60 days because your property is probably going to sell quite quickly. Here, self-explanatory, put your listing price for the home or the price that that person, if I switch this over to buyer, that should switch it over to their budget. All right, and commission rate, you can put it in at 3%. I usually put it in at 2.5 because that's a little bit more realistic these days. And then your opportunity phase, I would leave it at cultivate until you become more experienced of knowing where you're going to drop this. If I were to pull this pull down window, I can drop this into the cultivate stage, phase, the appointment phase, or the active phase. But sometimes if you do this and you don't realize that you've made this change and you go to look at it from the dashboard from here, you're going to be like, well, wait a second, why isn't that popping up in the cultivate phase? Well, that's because you had put it in active. So it's actually sitting over here and not over here. So I would just, as force of habit, just kind of leave it on cultivate so you know it's always going into the same spot. The stage, yeah, I would just go ahead and leave that there as well too. So once all of that is done, I would go ahead and click create, which would then create the opportunity. Okay, that's how you create the opportunity from the contact card. Do I have any questions up until this point about the opportunity on the contact side? No, we're all good?
That the only thing I was looking at, that's how my stages. I was wondering how to move them from one stage to the other, but I didn't change it in the detail area.
Mm-hmm. You can do that once you start getting more opportunities under your belt. You can start changing where you're going to drop them from the cultivate or the appointment or the active phase, and that's fine. But I'm going to show you where after that's created, how easy it would be for you to maneuver that. So, for example, I'm going to jump in here, and you'll see that tested count, right? So I'm going to drop this back into the cultivate section. Now, keep in mind, don't just come up here and think that because you feel as though you're over it, it's going to drop in there. Because if I feel as though I'm over it like here, you see how that banner and behind it cultivate, how it turns a little blue color? Once it turns blue, that's where I know that I can actually drop this. And it will disappear from the active over to the cultivate. So now when I click on the cultivate, it's over here. And all I'm doing is clicking and dragging it over. So when you come in for the first time and you leave it in the cultivate phase, here's where it will live in this first phase. All right. So I'm going to click back onto it, onto the cultivate phase. I'm going to get back into it, and here it is. And all you have to do is just click on it and you can start dragging it. So also keep in mind that when you come into these phases here, right, you'll see these stages. So the cultivate phase, the appointment phase, all right, these are your stages on the bottom. Now, yours are going to look different because I've changed the name of mine. So I wanted people who I'm cultivating a year out, 3 to 6 months out, or within 3 months. The appointment phase, I don't really utilize this so much. When you're doing a lot more deals, then yeah, I can possibly see why using these stages could be beneficial to you, because you'll have your people that you're scheduling appointments with, your appointments that you're keeping with them, and the listings that you're taking with them. But I usually tend to move straight over from the cultivate phase right into the active phase. All right. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the cultivate phase. I'm going to grab that test account and I'm going to move him over to the active. So I'm going to grab him, pull him, drop him up at active. Now I'm going to click over to active, and here he is. And then here in my active phase, this is where I have pre-MLS listing. We're showing home, we're showing the home. We're in negotiations. And then from here, I will eventually just move it straight over to under contract as far as like attorney review, inspections, appraisals, and clear to close. All right. Now, to change the name of these, you can't change the name of the phases, but you can change the name of the stages. All right. And I wish they kind of renamed these things, because it sometimes gets a little confusing where I'm in a stage or I'm in a phase or whatever, but this will be your command. So you'll name it the way that you want it, and you'll understand as far as what you've named it thereafter. So for example, if I'm in this active phase and I want to change these stages here, what I would do is come over here where it says edit stages. And then from here, I can see the stages that are in this phase. And I can say, okay, well, I have pre-MLS listing, I have showing, negotiations, and my legacy. If I needed to add one, I can just go ahead and add a stage, and I can just name it test, whatever. And then I can just go ahead and save it. And then you'll notice how it drops it on the bottom here. Now, let's say that I wanted this in between these two stages here. I can just click on it and move it up. All right. Now, within these stages here, there is a checklist of items. And these items do one of two things. One, it reminds you to do something within that particular stage, or once you mark it off as being completed, if you have your client update set up, your clients will actually get an email at the end of the day, or whatever time that you set up for them to get an email. Like, for example, if I were to click on showing and see what this checklist is, right here, I have place a lockbox, place sign in the yard, get the COVID hold harmless signed. These are things that I don't necessarily need, the client doesn't need to know about it. But if I did, I can just click on client update. So once I've placed a lockbox on the property, and I mark this as being completed, at the end of the day, my client will end up getting an email saying, hey, this is where we are in the process of this listing. Today, we've placed a lockbox onto the home. Today, we've placed the lawn sign in the yard. You would use this more for like, hey, we got the appraisal back, or we got the home inspection, or the list of repairs, stuff like that. That's what the client update button here will do. All right. So here's how you, again, how you can add a stage and how you can add a checklist item. So like if I click on this checklist item, this is pre-listing. So here I have some information like take photos, take measurements, get a copy of the deed, get a copy of the survey if needed, right? You can add in information pre-listing, you know, did we get the listing agreement signed, you know? And again, I can just save that. Now, if I need any one of these to be, again, if I need the client to know about the update, I can just click on it here. So then when I click on this checkbox here that we've taken the photos, that client will end up getting an email saying, hey, we took photos the day of the property. All right. So I'm going to pause there for a second for any questions. Anyone have any questions about the creating of the stages and or the checklists?
James, when you get them to close, they die there, they go away by themselves, or you got to archive?
You mean the checklist?
Yes.
So, and that's a great question. So this is one of the things in my opinion that I'm just not a fan of. You see how here this says 0 of 4? All right, so if I were to click on this, and this is how you update the checklist. So let's say that we took photos, right? So I would click here and say, all right, we took photos, so that's been completed. If I click on the client update, at the end of the day, because of that's how I have the due time set up, they will get an email saying, hey, we took photos today of the, what do you call it, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and click close. And you'll see this now go to 1 of 4, right? However, this is the issue that I have with this, is that if I move this, this opportunity over to my test, because I know I didn't create a checklist for it, I know what it's going to look like when I drop it over, but I'm going to move it over to test, and you're going to see that 1 of 4 turn into 0 of 0. So if I missed something on the checklist from over here, I no longer see it in this section. All right. Now, if I move this back, I will see it again because it's now pulling that checklist once again. So basically what we're trying to work with KW is to get them to possibly see about creating one checklist that would start like in the cultivate phase that would go through each and every phase until close. So then at any time, if I were to click on this, I would see everything that needs to be done. And if I miss something, I can always come back in here and to, you know, to readdress that issue. But you can still use this. It's just that you have to be more aware of when you're moving it from one spot to the next. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but okay, now away from that, if it goes all the way to closing, you're already done the deal, sitting in your closing, closed all the way over to close, it just sits there forever, or do you have to archive it?
No, so and that's a great question. So whenever you're under contract and you close the deal and you move it from the under contract over to closed, it should sit in the closed file until the market center does their transmittal.
Yeah, you could be doing your schoolwork.
Okay, so okay, all right.
All right. So if you have deals that are sitting in this closed section, and they've been sitting there for more than 30 days, you could try to reach out to KW support and see why that's happening, but it shouldn't be. It should sit in here for, so if I close a deal today, and today's the 2nd, it will sit in here all through July. Now, when the market center does their transmittal, at the, when the Market Center does their transmittal at the beginning of August, around,
You're muted. Can't hear anything.
I got you.
There you are.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys can all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. That's weird. I think my microphone on my laptop just broke. All right. So when it comes to the transmittal usually happens at the Market Center within the first 3 days of the beginning of the next month. So when you move an opportunity over to the closed file, it should sit there until that transmittal time period, which will be the first week of the next month. And then it should eventually move itself completely out of your closed archive. And from there, I'm sorry, it moves from your closed opportunity, and then it'll go into the archive section of your opportunities, and that's where it'll eventually live for the remaining time period.
Is that the same place if you archive a contact that goes to the same place?
Yeah, for the most part,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, yeah, and for everyone else who doesn't know how that works too, if you have a contact in command and you end up archiving him, technically speaking, he's still in your contacts. But the thing is that you've archived him, so you've basically kind of just made him invisible, but he's still there, but he's in the background in your settings. So if you were to try to add him back in by email, phone number, you may end up getting an error message saying, hey, this contact still lives here. Well, that's because he's in your archive.
Here's the problem with that. I put a bad phone number in, and I tried to re-put the person in the contact with the right phone number, but I had archived that other one with the bad number, and now I kind of just threw it out.
So what you could do is this: you can go and find that archived contact and you can restore it back. Then when it's restored and back in your contacts, just go into the edit feature within the contact card, remove the phone number, save it, then go back into it again, and then put the new phone number in there and then save it, and it should save. Now, there is a way that how you input the number, sometimes you have to play with it. Like if it's a 609-856 number, you may put like 856-555-5555. Sometimes it won't take the number. It's really weird, but it's a formatting issue with regards to the phone number. So you just have to make sure that you're not putting like 856-5555 and you're not putting in the 856 or 609 number. Just make sure that you're putting in the area code as well too when you're doing phone numbers like that.
Okay.
All right. All right. So any questions up until this part as far about the opportunities? All right. So going back to the active part. So remember we talked about the opportunity tags. All right. So here I have, you know, my tags for the opportunity, and the purpose of this is at a quick glance, you're going to be able to see what this opportunity is doing. So for example, if I were to click on, say, under contract, I know that we're using core title for this deal. If I were going back over to this, I know that we're using YHT as the title company. We're going FHA. We're using Greg Voorhees as the attorney, okay? We're using Premier as the home warranty insurance agency. The reason that I do that also is because if I'm like in my rentals, for example, here I have certain tags like NTN. So this, when I see the NTN, I know that I've ran an NTN report for this client. I could go in, and because I know I have more information now that I can put in, so I can go click on the contact card, come into it. I can click the edit button. And then here I can add more contact tags. So here I know that I have pay stubs now. So I can type in pay, right? Oh, see, I don't have pay stubs. All right, so that's great. So, but do I have credit? So I have credit report. I have the credit report for this person, so I can click on that, and then I'll click save. And then now when I come back over, I should see, no, I think I accidentally deleted that other one, so I'm going to go back. And I'm also going to add the NTN. I'm going to save it, go back to the tenant. And then now here at a quick glance, I can see I have the credit report for this person. I have the NTN report. Doesn't look like I have pay stubs set up, so that's fine. I'm going to show you guys how to create those tags. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the settings button. And I'm going to come into my settings. I'm going to come over to command settings. I'm going to go to opportunity settings. And then you're going to see where it says opportunity tags. All right. Did that go too quickly for anyone? No? Good. All right. So I'm going to click on opportunity tags. And then here's where all of those tags live, right? So I'm going to create a couple of new tags, and I'm going to change this over to 100 just so I can see all of the tags at once. So I can see proof of funds, pre-approval, pre-qual. All right, so I'm going to create pay stubs. So I'm going to click create, and I'm just going to type in pay stubs. And because I want this color to match the other ones, I'm going to leave it as white. I'm going to click create. So now I've created a new tag. It says a new tag's been created. And where is it? And there it is. Okay. If you need to edit something that you've created, like I've noticed that here, I'd like to keep everything consistent. So I'm just going to capitalize that. So now I've created that new one for pay stubs. So I'm going to go back into the opportunity. And I'm going to view details. I'm going to click on the edit button. And I'm just going to type in pay. And I should see pay stubs. And then I'm going to save it. Now, when I come back to the dashboard, as I'm looking at it, I can see that at a real quick glance, that for Vania, I have an NTN report for her, I have her credit report, and I have her pay stubs. So we're at the point now where we're submitting applications, so I can start moving her over to application submitted. Then once we go under contract, I can move her over to pending, because then at that point, the application has been accepted, we're waiting to close, and then from there I can move her over to the closed section, where again, she'll live here until after the first transmittal of the month, and then it should eventually be removed from my opportunities. All right. So I'm going to pause there because as far as opportunities, that's kind of what I have for you with regards to moving the opportunities. One thing I do want to show you is that when you're in the opportunity, make sure that you're also filling out this information too, which is going to be important for you guys. So when you click the edit button, you're going to see this information down here as far as like what your time frame is, your closing date. These dates here do start affecting your percentages as far as like, and what I mean by that is eventually when you're tracking your numbers through these sections. Now you notice how this says 70%, this says 80%. If I were to click on the appointments, you see how it says scheduling 10%, 20%. Basically what those numbers are basically saying is that whenever I put a client into the showing phase or the showing stage, I have a 70% likelihood that I'm going to be able to close that deal. If I move them over to the application submitted section, on average, I'm going to close 80% of those deals. And then if I move them over to the legacy, I'm going to end up closing them 90% of the time. Now, the reason that I say that it's important for you to start putting in these dates is because when you're at these other sections here, and let me go back just to move screens. So like, for example, if you're in the, the appointment phase and you're looking at your stages as far as like your scheduling, what you've kept, the listings you took, when you start changing this information here, as far as the appointment schedule, the appointment date, agreements won, leases signed, and occupancy date, that starts to affect these percentages. And the whole purpose of that is that this helps you to understand what you're going to end up closing, because this will start tracking your numbers in real time once you get to 50 transactions. All right. So you notice how my test has 0% because I haven't put anyone through this phase. So it's not showing me any probability yet because I've never used it. All right. But when you start seeing these, you'll see that if I'm in the pre-listing, I have a 50% percentage that I'm going to end up closing those deals. When I get to the showing, 70%, negotiations, 80%, 90%. So make sure that you're filling out all the information when you're in your opportunities as you're moving them along. If you need to update the information, by all means, update it. Just click on the edit button and you can change this information as far as your close date, your appointment scheduled, your contract date, when your agreement was won, so on and so forth. Because as you start closing these deals and moving them along through the pipeline, through the opportunities, when you finally get to the close, these will start tracking in real time for you. So, but from what I understand from KW, it's about 50 deals. All right. Before I jump into DocuSign again, do I have any questions up until this point? Anything that I didn't show you? Anything you'd like some more information about?
I do have a question.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you went over it or I missed it, but when you're trying to transition the client and moving the phases from cultivate to appointment to active, at what point do you go from cultivating to active? So I have a client who we had the consultation and I have him as a client. He signed the agreement with me and we are currently searching for houses. He's pre-approved. So would he be now active?
Yes. Now, again, these phases here, the cultivate phase, the appointment phase, active, under contract, and closed, you cannot change the name of these phases, all right? But
Okay.
you can change the name of the stages. So like for here, do you have your computer open?
I do not, but I can.
Okay. Because I changed this well over a year ago. I forget what this actually says in the cultivate section. I think it says warm, hot, cold, or I think they have like colored names or something like that. I changed this because this was a better representation of what I wanted my stages to be. So when I came into edit stages, I changed this to people that I'm cultivating that are a year out, people that are 3 to 6 months out, people that are hot within 3 months, right?
Okay.
Now, once I did that, if I go to my appointment phase, again, this is just how quickly I move. Doug, I've been working with this guy for a long time. He's ready to go. He can go at any time period. So if he were to call me tomorrow, now I've already had an appointment with him where I've sat down with him and we've talked about, doing the listing and stuff. We haven't signed anything yet, but if he were to call me up tomorrow and say, hey, James, I'm ready to go. I'm finally going to retire. I'm more than likely going to skip the scheduling, kept, and took listing and go straight to the active. So basically what I would do is just like this. I'm going to click on Doug's name and the card. I'm going to drag it over to the active, and you see where it turns that teal color. I'm going to see once it drops, changes color, I'm going to drop it. And then now he's moved into the active phase. So now here's where Doug is. Now, if we're pre-listing, then this is where he'll stay. If we've already started showing the home, then yeah, I'll just move him over to the showing section and just drop him into here. But again, going back to the tags, here's where having those tags is going to be important, because for, whether it's a seller, whether it's a buyer, a landlord, or a tenant, you want to be able to have these tags so you can track as far as different information. Like if you already know what title company he's going to use, you can just come into, your settings, into the edit button. And I can come into the tag and I can say, okay, we're going to use Core Title. And we're going to use Ben Dash as the attorney. And then I would go ahead and save it. Then when I come back over here, at a quick glance, I can see, oh, okay, great. We're going to use Ben's the attorney and we're using Core Title. So that's the importance of the opportunity tags within the opportunity tag, the contact card. Now, again, if you need to move him, you can just click on him and drag him to whatever spot that you're going to. And let me just push this guy back because this is a real, real opportunity. So let me take this out because. All right. Anyone else have any other questions before I move on with regards to the opportunities? No? You'll be able to start seeing your numbers also when you start putting people into these, into your opportunities. Like I said, once you get past 50 transactions, it will start tracking a lot of those percentages and the probability percentages in real time. So you'll be able to see what your business is looking at when you start moving them forward through these, the phases within the opportunities. All right. All right, so if there are no other questions with opportunities, I'm going to jump right over to DocuSign. Now, before I jump into that, I'm going to pause for a second. Is there anyone here that has not made the connection to DocuSign? No? Everyone's connected to DocuSign? Anyone not know how to make the connection to DocuSign?
All good here.
Yeah, okay. You guys can still hear me because someone just responded to me. So. All right, so I'm going to jump into DocuSign from the opportunity. So I'm going into my test account. And then from here, this is the details page of the opportunity for James, right? Now, I'm going to jump over to the Documents tab. When you start the opportunity for the very first time, keep this in mind, whether you're using .loop or whether you're using DocuSign, you have to make the connection or the handshake from command first. So if you're still doing the creating a loop or trying to create a room, straight from DocuSign and or .loop, I would recommend not doing that. And the reason for that is because it's going to end up causing more work for you in the end. Because when you're making that connection via .loop and or DocuSign, and you're not creating the handshake through command, those files will never be able to be uploaded into command. So for example, I've already made the connection to DocuSign with this opportunity. So if I need to add the RESPA document, I can just click on add file, click on DocuSign. It will go through my DocuSign folders and it will find that document in question, and then I can just upload it in. If you do not make the connection or the handshake from command into DocuSign first, then any document that you put into DocuSign will never be able to be shown here. So what you'll have to do later on is it ends up being more work for you guys, because you'll have to then create a new room, and then from the old room, you'll have to click on all the files and then move them over to the new folder. And then from the new folder is where you'll be able to upload those documents into compliance for command. So if you're still doing it that way, I would recommend stopping and not doing that anymore and doing everything straight from command first. So we're all gonna pretend that we have not made this connection. Over on the right-hand side here, this would normally be a dark colored button that would say start transaction. So when you click on start transaction, it will say, hey, what do you want to use? And you'll click on DocuSign, which will then bring you into DocuSign. So I'm going to click on go to transaction now. And here it's going to now switch over to DocuSign. It's going to open up my username. And my password is already auto-populated. And what it's going to do is it's going to take me into the room within DocuSign. So this is going to be the room for 123 Main Street. Now, normally when you come into the room for the very first time, it's supposed to pull all of your details information or all of your contacts information into the contact card, all right? Now, yes, I know that this is James Leong here, and you are going to see different sellers and buyers. That's because I've changed those names just for when I'm doing training out of this account, so you can see the differences between the seller and the buyer. But basically what I would recommend to all of you when you come into the room for the very first time, click the edit button and then come into the room, the details page of DocuSign, and just make sure that all the information for whoever you have is correct. So whether you have the seller or whether you have the buyer, just make sure that the information is correct. So I'm going to come in here, click the edit button, and I see that I have Eddie Vetter, I have his phone number, I have his email address. Great. Now I'm going to scroll down. I have seller 2, I have his information, I have his email address, right? All of that's good. So that's great. So now I'm going to continue moving forward. I have the listing agent, his name's in here, his phone number, email address. Everything looks good. I'm going to come down to the buyer. Here I have buyer 1, buyer 2, and then I have the buyer's agent and their email address. Okay. So I'm now going to click save. Now, the purpose of all of this is that everything on this details page here that you see populates into your documents. So if I have a document that's going to pull the seller's name, it will pull it from the details page here. If it's something that has the buyer's name, it's going to pull from the details page here into the document in question. All right. So when I switch over to documents, when you come in here for the very first time, you're not going to have any documents. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to click on the add button. You're going to click on DocuSign Forms, and it's going to open up all of your folders. Now, your market center may already have some groups set up. And you should also have all of your libraries set up as well too, okay? So the way that this is going to happen is if I'm doing a listing package, I can click on the listing group and I'm going to have most of the documents that I need for a listing. Now I get this question a lot. And part of the question is, why is it that some of the documents for a listing don't show up in the group, which means I have to switch over to either the Najar folder or the Nexus folder, for example, to get the listing agreement. So here's the listing and lease agreement, right? But you'll notice that in the listing package, that document is not here. The reason for that is because some of these documents, like this document here, which is coming from the board, when they update this document, DocuSign is going to update this document only in this folder here, or only in this library. So if they took this document here and they put it into this folder and put it into this folder, then when they have to update the information, they have to update the file in here. Then they have to go into the KW798 folder and update the document there. Then they have to come over to the listing package group up here, and then they have to update the document there. They're not going to do that. And they've already explained that to us. If it's a board document or a state document, it's going to live in one of these two libraries only. Most of the documents that you're going to see in this listing package here, some of these are pulled in and they will live here, but if you don't see them, they're going to live in one of those other two libraries. All right. So from here, I'm going to click on the document that I need. So I'm going to go back into the Nexus folder. I'm going to pull the listing agreement document. All right. So I'm going to click on this document. That's what I want to bring in. And I'm going to add the selected document into this room. So now you'll see that the document has now been added to the room. Now, you're going to see a couple of different colors with the icons when you're coming into DocuSign. So just so you know what the colors mean, the blue icons mean that this is a DocuSign form, which means that DocuSign has already gone into this document and they've set it up. So if there's a spot that seller 1 is supposed to sign, that's what they've designated in that section. If it's seller 2, buyer 1, buyer 2, they've already pre-formatted that document, which is going to pull the information from the details page into the corresponding sections of that document. All right. When you see a PDF, basically what is happening with this document is that DocuSign has not gone into this document. They have not pre-designated any of these sections because they have no idea where those sections belong because you pulled in a PDF. So this is just a document. Now, can you manipulate it and add signature boxes to it? Yes, you can. And I'll get to that in a second because that's where you do that from the create envelope section. All right. Once you have a document that's been signed, you will get a green icon, which basically says that it's been signed. So some of you may be dealing with nowadays where you're putting in an offer on a property and you lose it and you have to end up using, you move on to the next property and you have to use the proposal purchase all over again. So this is what I would recommend to you, unless one of your coaches or someone else tells you differently that works for you, but this is what works for me. Come into the document for when you come into it, right? So let's say this is the proposal purchase. So I'm going to click on it. And this is where I'm going to manipulate this document, right? Now it's going to auto-populate some of the information because these sections here are already set up from DocuSign. But let's say that the address of this property, I'm going to change it to 123 Main Street, right? We're offering $2,000 on the property. We're going to give an earnest deposit of $500. Okay. I put in my information with wood mooring insects, home inspection, so on and so forth. And then I would fill in my information, right? Right. So I filled out all the information, and this is the one that we're going to put an offer on. So I'm going to save and close it. Now, what I would do is, whether you're sending this to your clients to have signed or whether you're going to view this yourself, this is what I would do. I would create the envelope. So basically what's happening is DocuSign has now taken a copy of that offer to purchase, and they're reaching out, they're grabbing an envelope, you're going to put the address on the envelope, and then you're going to put that document into the envelope. So up here, I'm going to change this to listing agreement documents, right? I would also change the subject so you can track it that way. If you want to put in a message as far as what the documents are, that's perfectly fine too. Now, because of the fact that it was a blue icon form, DocuSign has already pre-tagged the roles on that document. So again, when I come into this document here, I've had some agents who are not using the pre-tagged roles, they're using the room participants. So because of that, they're working harder. And I'll show you that with the PDF in a second, why you don't want to do that if you don't need to. You're going to click on pre-tag roles, and it's going to say, okay, well, for this document here, which is, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were doing a listing agreement. It's going to say, all right, well, this is the proposal to purchase. So this is a buyer's document. So I'm going to say, yes, this is a buyer's document. So I want you to use buyer 1. I want you to use buyer 2. And we're going to say, okay, well, buyer 1 is going to be Freddie Mercury, and then buyer 2 is going to be Biggie Smalls. So here I've put in Freddie Mercury is my buyer 1, Biggie Smalls is my buyer 2, and I'm going to go add selected. So now what it's doing is it's putting those people into their specific signature boxes in the document. And here I can see, okay, here's Freddie, here's Biggie, everyone's good. So now I'm going to click the next button. And it's going to take me into the document to take a look at it one last time before I send it out. Because once you click send, it's just like if you were to take a letter, put a stamp on it, and put it in a mailbox. It's gone. The only thing that you can do at that point, if you have to make a correction, is void out the document, which then takes it back from everyone. But that's it. There's nothing else you can do. So here I can see, all right, I got Freddie Mercury, it's 123 Main Street. Here's the price we're going to offer. There's earnest money deposit. There's my information on the bottom. Here's where they would need to sign. So if I click this send button, it will then send to these two people. And then eventually when it comes back, you're going to get a signed copy, right? So this is what I do to get a signed copy. And this is why it's important that you would do it this way. I'm just removing these people because these are fictitious email addresses, so it won't work. So I'm just gonna put one person in here. And I'm gonna put myself in. All right, so he needs to sign. I'm gonna click next. All right, there's my signature where it would go, and I'm going to click send. So now it's sending that out to me in an email, and this is why I recommend that you do this. Either you send it to yourself, or you actually send it out to your clients, whatever is easiest to you. For me, I just send it back to myself as needs to view and I'll show you why. So that email is now being sent to my email address. So I'm going to click on here and let's see. There's the document. I'm going to click on it. So I'm going to review the document and it's going to ask me to sign. So now I've signed that document. So DocuSign is now going to get a signed copy of the document. And sometimes it takes a couple seconds for it to populate back into the DocuSign room, but I should eventually see 2 signed proposal to purchase. So I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Now, the reason that I do this is because when I lose that property, I have to come back into this proposal to purchase and I have to remodify this document again for the new property that we decide to make an offer on. You can only have one master copy of any document in this room at one time. But you have to keep a copy of all your offers for 6 months. So the reason that I send it to myself as either needs to sign or needs to view is because when this eventually comes into the room, I will now have a signed copy or a green icon signed copy. So over here it is. So if I click on this, you'll notice that this will say 123 Main Street. Here's the 123 Main Street, right? There's my signature on the bottom. Now that means that I can keep this copy for the allotted time period that's necessary. Because if we lose this property, I still have to keep this offer letter here for compliance. But now I have to come back into the offer letter and we lost the property at 123 Main Street. So now I have to do a whole new offer to purchase letter for a different home, which is 321 Main Street. And we're offering 3,000 now, and we're offering $1,000 as earnest money deposit, right? All the rest of the information, for the most part, is going to pretty much stay the same. But if you need to change the information, you can go ahead and make that change, right? So here, we're going to have to do a new proposal to purchase for 321 Main Street. So I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to right click on it, create an envelope, and do the whole entire process all over again for the new property that we're going under contract with. I'm sorry, that we're putting in an offer on. All right. Now, when that happens, and either I send it to myself as view, or if I sign it myself, or if you're sending it to your clients, when you get it back, here's where that history will live. Because some of you, I know I have one client that we're on our 5th property that we are replacing an offer on because we just keep losing out to higher bids. So I need to keep 5 different copies or 5 different proposal of purchases for the 5 offers that we've already made.
James, that's the same thing happened to me. I have like several different offers, but how many, is there a limit to how many you can actually save in there or no?
No. See, and that's the workaround. Because of the fact that DocuSign will not allow you to have more than 1 copy of the form.
Right.
I just go in, I fill out the information for the new property, and what I do is I create an envelope and I send it to myself to view. So then once I get the email in my email, I just view the document and it automatically sends me a signed copy here. So I have it for my files.
Okay.
And then if we lose the property and I have to move on to the next one, I go to the master copy, which is here, and then I just go in, change the name from the old property to the new property. So that's the workaround to keeping multiple documents here. But you also need this for compliance. In fact,
Right.
I never knew that. You actually have to keep the offers for 6 months. So that's how I do it. So if I send this offer now, once this is signed or viewed or whatever, you can easily then just right click on the document and you can email it out to the listing agent. You can download the document and keep
Okay.
it, on your laptop or your hard drive. So there are different things that you can do here as well. So let's say I sent this offer letter out to my buyers to sign. They signed it. Now I get it back as a signed copy. Well, I can just go ahead and click the email, put the listing agent's email in there, and then add the pre-qualification letter, whatever other documents you have. And then I can just email it straight out to the listing agent from here.
So you don't have to actually create an envelope for the listing agent.
If you wanted to get a little bit more advanced with it, then yes, you could. So like, for example, I can go ahead and create the envelope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could definitely do this. Absolutely. So I could say, all right, well, buyer one. So I'm going to use my pre-tag roles and it's going to be buyer one, buyer two. So I know that's going to be Freddie and then Biggie. So there's my buyers. So I'm going to add them, right? Now, because the document doesn't have a spot for the listing agent, he's now going to be added as a room participant. So I'm going to click on the add recipient pull down window and I'm going to go to room participant. And then here's where I would find the agent. So, right. So I'm going to say, all right, here's James Leong, the buyer's agent. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to add selected. Now, I want him to be the last person, right? So I'm going to change this over to 2. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say receives a copy. So what's going to happen is Freddie and Biggie are going to get the document. They're going to sign the document because they're under needs to sign. Once they finish signing the document will then automatically be sent to James as the listing agent, and he will receive a copy. So yes, you could do that if you wanted to, but the thing is that from here, they're only getting the offer letter. So you would still need to send them the pre-qual. But if this was a different document, like maybe this was the contracts, or maybe this was an addendum or an amendment that you needed to have signed by your buyers, and then after they signed it, you wanted to send it to the other party, you can add them in just like this. Or let's say this was going to go to the listing agent, and then maybe I was going to add maybe I was going to add my lender. So I can come into add recipient, I can go to email address, and then I can type in the name of the person, of whoever it is. So let's say, for example, I had, Jeffrey is my lender. I can click on Jeffrey, and then I can do the same thing, receives a copy. So then what would happen is that buyer 1, buyer 2 would sign, the listing agent would get a copy of the document, and then the lender would end up getting a copy of the document as well too. So, there are a lot of different options for you to utilize within DocuSign if you wanted to. Absolutely. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any questions up until this point? No? Everybody's good? You guys are the quietest bunch. No questions? All right. So I'm going to jump into showing you with regards to the, I'm going to show you the DocuSign email, and I'm going to show you some other information with regards to the your ID number for the room. So I'm going to remove these people because I don't need Biggie Smalls getting this. And you'll see here, I have those drafts, so I'm just gonna delete those documents out. All right. Actually, no, before I end up doing that, I do want to show you with regards to the PDF, because that's important too. So remember I said we had a, when you have a PDF, so like if I clicked on this because it says PDF, you notice that when I come into this document, there's nothing for me to do, because the thing is that it's not formatted for anything, because DocuSign doesn't know that there may be some place to sign on here. But you can still use a PDF. Now, the biggest time that you're going to run into this problem is when you're on the listing side. A lot of times you're going to create the contracts, you're going to send the contracts out to the buyer, right? And the buyer's agent. And then, I'm sorry, you're going to send it out to the buyer's agent, and then you're going to end up getting it back from the buyer's agent, and it's going to be a PDF. So what I would say to you is, if you can, when you're on the listing side and you're sending the contracts out to the buyer's agent, send the document out to the buyer's agent first. Tell him, hey, take a look at the documents. Tell me if everything's okay. If everything's okay, just give me your buyer's email addresses and stuff. And then what I'll do is I'll send it to them via DocuSign, and then I'll send it out to them so they can sign. And then once they're done signing, it'll automatically get sent over to my seller, and then they can sign, and then everyone will get a copy of it. So the reason that I highly recommend that you do this is for a couple different reasons. One, let's say that, I'm doing a deal with Paula and I'm sending out the documents to her, right? So she, her clients are buying my listing, and I send the documents out to her. When she signs and her client signs, she sends it back as a PDF to you. When you get it back as a PDF, you now have to go through all of the documents, and you have to add seller 1, seller 2, seller's initial, seller 2's initial, date sign, go to the next page, initial here, initial there. It's time consuming because it comes back to you as a PDF. Now, you're going to get some pushback sometimes from the buyer's agent. And if you do, well, then there's nothing I can tell you. But if you do get another buyer's agent where you can tell them, hey, Paula, I'm going to send you the documents. If everything's good to go, let me know. And then just give me your buyers, email addresses and names. I'll set them up and then send them DocuSign so then everyone can sign. And the reason for that is because when the buyer sign and the buyer's agent signs, it will automatically get emailed to your sellers so they can sign, you can sign, and then DocuSign, once all parties have signed, DocuSign will automatically re-email all parties involved the fully executed documents. All right? Because if you've ever done a deal, you'll notice that when you get the documents back from the seller, you now have to take all the fully executed contracts and you have to now resend them out to the buyer's agent. He has to then send them out to buyer 1, buyer 2, and then you need to get acknowledgement back that you have fully executed contracts, which then starts the clock for attorney review. When you use DocuSign in this fashion, the last person to sign is basically going to be you as the listing agent. Once you sign, it will automatically email out to everyone fully executed contracts. And you have a history of that, okay? You should also still get a acknowledgement from the buyer's agent that, hey, we've received it, but the system automatically sends it out. So, you could argue that you received it, all right? I'm gonna pause there for a second because I know that was a lot of information. Does anyone not understand what I just explained with regards to the fully executed contracts, with how it starts attorney review and using the email addresses for the buyers?
No, that was pretty clear. Hopefully the other side goes with it.
So in the end, you can have this discussion with the buyer's agent. You already have their information. You know, if you want to go through the contracts, you can find the buyer's information. So because you'll have a phone number, you'll eventually get email addresses. So it's not like you're really hiding anything. In the end, what you're stressing to the other side is it just makes your life easier. If they've used DocuSign, then they should know as well too, that it just makes it easier.
But wouldn't it make it easier for them as well if everything gets signed and like, wouldn't it be easier for them to go along with it?
Yeah, it would be. But the biggest thing that you're going to get pushback on is you're going to get pushback from the buyer's agent, because the buyer's agent feels like if he gives you their full names and their email addresses, that you're going to steal their clients.
But it's on the contract.
I know that.
Okay. I just, okay.
Yeah, again, there are some agents out there that's just how their mind is. Me personally, I really don't care. I have no problem. If I'm on the buyer side, I have no problem giving you my client's information, because the thing is that I'm not worried about you stealing them away from me, because I know what I do after the close of the deal of how I keep in contact with them, that should not be an issue. I send them birthday cards. I send them home anniversary cards. I send them holiday cards and stuff like that. You know, I'm calling them once a quarter. I'm sending them my calendar at the end of the year. There's all these different things that I'm doing that if you end up stealing them thereafter, well, all right, then maybe they were never really mine to begin with. But I'm doing all of those things anyway. So that's why I'm not too concerned about it. So, but if you can get that information from the buyer's agent, it makes your job a whole lot easier. So jumping back over, so when I have that PDF, right? So let's say that you don't get a accommodating buyer's agent and you do get the contracts back. This is what you would have to do, because you're going to get it back as a PDF. You're going to right click, create an envelope. Now, because of the fact that DocuSign doesn't know where the pre-tag roles are going to go, you're not going to have that option. So you're going to have to use the room participants. So here is where you're going to say, all right, well, you know something, I'm going to have to use my seller. So Eddie Vedder is my seller 1, Prince is my seller 2, and me as the listing agent, I'm going to add myself in, and I'm going to add selected. So you see it adds them. Again, make sure you change the name, so you can follow your well, let's say these were the contracts, so you could just say, yeah. Now, I always move myself to the last spot. There are different reasons for that, but I want to be the last person, so I'm going to put myself in that last position. So I'm going to change it over to 2. It can send it out to these 2 people at the same time, or you can do the same thing. You can just go, all right, I'm going to change this person to 2, and I'm going to change James over to 3. All right. Now, this is what you would end up doing. I'm going to click next, and it's going to take me into the document. The document, DocuSign, has no idea where signatures need to go, where initial boxes need to go. So I'm going to have to create all of that information myself. And that's because it's a PDF. So here it's going to open up. So here I have Eddie Vedder is designated for all of these tools. So I'm going to click the signature box, and I'm going to say, all right, Eddie needs a sign here. I need to put a date sign box. So I'm going to put that here. And then I need an initial box. So I'm going to take the initials and I'm going to drop that to the bottom of the page. Then I'm going to switch over to Prince. And I'm going to say, all right, well, he needs the initial here too. So I'm going to bring the initial box over, drop it there. He needs the sign. So I'm going to put his signature over here. His date sign box, I'm going to drop it over here. And then you need the sign as well. So here I switch over to me. I switch over to that signature box, and I'll sign on the bottom. And I'll bring a date sign box over here as well. And then that would be it. So when this gets sent out, here's where seller 1 signs, seller 2 signs, and then their initials. And then once they're done, it will then be sent back to me where I can then sign this document. All right. The tools you have on the left-hand side, you have other tools that you can also utilize. So for example, if I need to put a text box for seller one, I'll just click back over to his name, and you notice how the color changes. So I can go text. I can put it in a text box and I can type in whatever information that I need to. Now, let's say I just needed a text box in general. Come over here and make it an unrequired field and read only. So you notice here how it's not shaded yellow. It means that nobody can manipulate this field later on. So when I send this out, it will send to these people for their signature boxes. This text box will be filled out like you see it here, but no one will be able to manipulate it. Does that make sense? If I need to add a checkbox, I can just click a checkbox. I can just drop it there. Now again, notice how the color is designated for seller seller one. If I needed to change that, I can just click and drag. And then over on the right-hand side, I can say, Eddie doesn't need to fill that information. That needs to be Prince. So I click on Prince. Now you notice how his color changes to blue because this is Prince's section. If I needed to make this read only, just highlight the two boxes, click read only. And now he can't touch those boxes. Only I can touch it because it's a read only. Everyone follow me with that? If you need to add a line over on the left-hand side, you have these tools here, right? So just click on the pre-fill tools right here. And let's say I needed to do a strike through. So I can just come over to line, click the line, and I can say, all right, we're going to strike this. Now, once I add that over on the right-hand side, you'll notice that this is now changed to giving me some options. So I can change the color from red to black or blue. I can change the thickness. So you see how I can do that information? I can even change the length if I needed to. You can click back on it and you can change the direction. All right. And then when you need to go back, just click on the standard fields. The radio button is not like the checkbox button. It's going to be multiple buttons. So if I were to drop it here, you'll see another button, another circle pop up next to it. So if I need, like, say I had 4 different options, I can add the 4 different options. So let's say that I put here, I typed in yes. And I put in here, no. And then I put another box in here and I typed in maybe. What will happen is these radio buttons I can put to a recipient. So I can come back over to Eddie. And I can say, well, this is where Eddie is going to fill out, right? So I click on Eddie and make sure that I'm under the standard fields. I'm going to click the radio button and I'm going to drop it here. And then I'm going to add the one more box for the no, right? So what will happen is when this gets emailed out, you'll see the color is for seller 1. So maybe this is information that I need him to answer for me on this document. When this gets sent out to him, it will give him the option of yes, no, or maybe. Whatever he clicks on, it will then render the other 2 boxes not valid. If you used a checkbox, that's completely different because he can still check this box, and this box. So maybe you needed to do something like that where everything that applies, he needs to checkbox. So you can just add these different checkboxes. So when he comes into this later, if he clicks on yes, I can't click on no as well. You see how it won't allow me to do more than one at one time? But the checkbox, I can do multiple boxes. Did I go too quick for anyone? Everyone get that? So I'm just showing you some extra tips and tricks that you can do with the document when you finally get into it. If this was a form document that I was creating an envelope for, you can do the same thing. When you get to this envelope creation section, this is your last opportunity to make any changes to the document that you see fit that you need to. So maybe you had this document and you forgot to add a text box or you forgot to add some text to a particular spot. You can go grab the text box, bring it over. Just make sure that you change the box over to read only so it's not under a particular recipient. And then if this document was ready to go, you can go ahead and click send and it will send this document out. Cool. All right, so I'm going to take another 10 minutes and I'm going to show you real quickly the emails. Close. Now, up on the top there, you guys see where it says inbox? Let me go back to it real quick. See right here where it says inbox? So this is what I recommend that you do. Click on the inbox, and this is basically going to take you to your inbox in DocuSign. This is where you can email documents, all right? So right up here, you're gonna see where this says, this is your inbox email address. Any documents sent to this address will be added to your inbox. You're going to copy and paste. So you're going to copy it, Control C. You're going to go to your emails. You're going to create an email. You're going to paste that address in here, right? When the email gets dropped in here, again, I highly recommend that you do this. Hover over it and then add this as an email address under your name. Does anyone not understand that part right there? Because that's really important. The reason that I'm telling you to do that is because if you are on the road and you need to send documents to your DocuSign email address, well, either you have a good memory and you'll remember that your email address is james.75949@mail.docusign.net. More power to you. But if you save that DocuSign email address to your phone book, then if you're on your laptop or if you're on your phone, you'll notice here, all I have to do is type in James dot, and it automatically pulls up that email address. If I'm on my phone, same thing. Now, the reason for that is just for this reason here. Here's my name. It's going into this email address, which is my DocuSign, right? I'm now going to add just any document. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to say here. So I grab that document, it's loading. And it's loaded. So now all I'm going to do is, I'm not going to put any subject matter. I'm not even going to change the subject name. I'm just going to click send. What is going to happen is in a couple of seconds, that document will now show itself in my inbox. Okay. So basically what I've showed you is if you're on the road and you need to upload some documents straight into DocuSign, as long as you have that email address, you can just upload that document straight into your inbox and it will eventually pop up into here. Now, I've already done that with these two documents here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them over to my room. So here, I know that this is for my property at 241 Wilmont. This is the termite certificate, right? So I emailed this into my room. I'm sorry, I emailed this into my inbox. So I'm going to click the radio button, and then I'm going to click move. It's going to ask me, well, where do you want to send this document? I'm going to say, well, I'm going to an active room, and then I'm going to look for the property, and there it is, and I'm going to move it. So it now is moving that document over to that room. Now, I know that these documents also need to go into that. So I'm going to click on this document here. I'm going to click on this document. Same thing. I'm just going to click move. I'm going to say, yep, we're going to an active room, and we're going to my 241 Wilmont. I'm going to move it over. And they've moved over. Now, you'll also notice that that email that I just sent out, which was the good faith deposit, is here. So that's what happened. So if I go back to my email address, right, I should see an email. Is it this one? So these are telling me that signed documents. So this is telling me that the people had signed some documents. Eventually, there it is. So here. So this is a notification telling me an inbound document email. Okay, because that's what it said, inbound document email. So it's telling me that the good faith deposit was uploaded into my inbox into DocuSign. So from here, I would just take this document, and again, I would just move it over. It's going to go into an active room. It's going to go to the 241 Wilmont, and I'm going to move it. That is the DocuSign email address. So please copy and paste that and copy it into your phone book so you have it. Now, I'm going to go a step further for you. So now I'm going to go into the room directly. So I'm going to go to that 241 Wilmont. And here I'm going to get a very unique ID number. So you see this ID number right up top here? It says it's the hashtag, and then it says copy and paste this room ID number in your email subject in order to send the documents into the room directly. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to copy and paste the whole number. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to my email. So I'm going to type in, because we've already saved it, I'm going to type in James dot. And then in the subject, I'm going to put hashtag that ID number. So I'm just going to go paste, right? Then I'm going to go and then I'm going to attach a different document. So I'm going to do, we'll do the seller's affidavit, right? So I have the uploaded document. There it is. I have the ID number for the room. So I'm going to click send. All right. So while that's being processed, I'm going to show you the last step, which is probably one of the coolest things. I have the ID number here. This is for the room, right? Everyone follow me? Now, let's say that this was an email that me and the seller was going back and forth, and we were having this really deep conversation, and I was telling them, hey, make sure you do this. And they tell me, no, we don't want to do that. Well, I highly recommend that you do a home inspection. And they tell me, no, we don't want to pay for a home inspection. We're good. We looked at the house. Everything's good, right? Well, here's that conversation that's going back and forth, back and forth. Well, I want to save this email as a document in the room in question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email it to my email at DocuSign. I'm going to use the ID number for the room. And then in the subject matter, I'm going to put hashtag PDF. Okay. Now I can also do one further and I can go hashtag home inspection. Okay. Here's the conversation that we had. I told him to get a home inspection. He told me he didn't want to get a home inspection. I want to make sure that I cover my ass. So I am now going to click send. Now I'm going to go back to the inbox because I can see that the other document, and here it is. So when I click on this, come here. Here is that document. It's been loaded into the room because it's telling me that it has. So I'm going to click back over to DocuSign, and there's the seller's affidavit. I don't need these two documents, so I'm going to get this out. Now I'm going to wait. Oh, I have two of these. A second or two, because hopefully it should pop over in a little bit. So we'll wait just a second or two. The reason that I did that PDF and hashtag home inspection is because what it will do is it will take that email and it will turn it into a PDF and it will upload it into my documents here within DocuSign. Now, the reason for that is because years down the line, in 3 years, 4 years, if it's under 7, they can still come back after you. But let's say at year 6, they decide that they want to come back at me and say, hey, we had a problem with XYZ. And I tell them, well, if you remember when we were buying a home, I told you to get a home inspection. And they're going to be like, no, wait, you never told us to get a home inspection. Yeah, I did. I told you guys to get a home inspection and you guys told me you didn't want to. No. We never told you that we didn't want a home inspection. Well, you're going to come back into your DocuSign and you're going to say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, yeah, I have the email right here. And this is where you would open up that email. And here's where you would have all of that information in that email going back and forth, because this will save all of the emails together. And you can say, no, I sent this email out on July 2nd at 11:44 a.m. I told you to get a home inspection, and your response back was that you didn't want to get a home inspection. And here's the email.
That's brilliant.
Usually when I get to that point and I show the how to do the PDF and email stuff, that's usually where most people are like, wow, that's really cool. Again, you can do that. I did this the other day. I had a text message and I wanted to save the text message. So what did I do? I screenshotted the text message. It automatically brings up the share button. I click share. I go to email. Because I have my DocuSign email address saved in my contacts, it pulls up my DocuSign email address. Now, you're not going to remember the ID number because that's you may be doing a couple different deals, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. As long as you have your DocuSign email address, which I did. So I did just like that. I said, DocuSign email address, hashtag PDF, hashtag whatever the conversation was that I wanted to save, and then I clicked send. It then sent that email into my DocuSign inbox. And then from there, I moved it over to the room later. And I have that text message now saved as a PDF. And that's what you use to cover your ass. Because I'm telling you right now, for some of you that are making offers and your buyers are like, oh no, we want this house. We'll forego the home inspection. Okay. Make sure you get a copy of it somewhere that you told them that you recommend getting a home inspection, and make sure you have proof that they said, I don't want a home inspection. whether it's text message, whether it's this, whether it's that, you got to cover yourself. Because your clients may seem like they really like you now, but when they get hit with a bill for a couple $1,000s and they want to blame it on someone, you're the first person that they're going to come back and try to blame. But as long as you have that documentation, because if you have that documentation that you can send over to, to the market center's attorney, you should be fine at that point. That's also why you should also get the final walkthrough letter also signed when you're doing a final walkthrough. But that's what I got for DocuSign. I have a couple of minutes left for any questions if you guys have some. If not, you guys start your 4th of July weekend. But any questions? Did you guys at least take some value out of this class? Hopefully, you guys were really quiet, so I'm hoping that you guys did.
This is great. I have pages of notes. Thank you so much.
Cool. Jessica, Adnan?
I do have a question.
Sure.
When you are creating the documents in the room and an envelope, and you're doing the room participants and you're assigning them buyer 1, you have 2 sellers, so you have seller 1, seller 2, and you're assigning yourself last to sign it or view it. Does seller 1 have to sign before seller 2 when you're assigning it, or they can sign even if you're putting 1 and 2?
All right. So when you're using the pre-tag roles, the pre-tag roles will put everyone into their specific spots, whether they're seller 1, seller 2, buyer 1, buyer 2, and so on. When you're using room participants, DocuSign doesn't know who seller 1 is, seller 2, so they're just going to be participants. So just also keep that in mind that, it's not going to be as easy as like, oh, seller 1 will automatically be auto-populated in the document in all of its sections. If you're using it as a PDF or a room participant, you have to designate where he's going to go, his initial boxes, and so on and so forth. Now, with regards to your question as far as who signs when, so I used to send it out position 1, position 2, position 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But if I'm dealing with the buyers, I'll probably do buyer 1, buyer 2, position 1. Buyer's agent, position 2. Seller 1, seller 2, position 3. And then myself in position 4. If you want to separate them even more so, you could. Now, the way that it works is this. Let's say that I send that document out to Tawana and Raymond. They're my sellers. They're my buyers. If I put them both in position 1, both of them at the same time will get that document. Sometimes you will get 1 or 2 of them that's going to call you and say, hey, James, I was looking at the document and I noticed that, my husband, Ray, is not on here. How come I don't see him? That's because the document was sent out to both people at the same time. So they're not going to see each other's information because they're both getting it at the same time. Now, if I sent it to Raymond first and then Tawana afterwards, then what's going to happen is only Raymond's going to get the document. Now, he may call you and say, hey, how come I don't see my wife's information on here? Raymond, that's because of the fact that I sent you the document first. Once you finish signing, it will then email over to your wife and then she will sign. And then from there, it'll go to the other parties after that. Now, I won't go too deep with this question right now, but the reason that I used to do that is because if I had to catch a mistake, and let's say that I sent it out to Raymond, Tawana, Aloha, and Paula, and let's say Raymond gets it first and he says, oh, hey, James, I noticed that there was a mistake on blah, blah, blah section. Okay, great. Well, what I can do is I can grab the document before Aloha, Tawana, and Paula get it. I can correct the document, and then the correction will then go back out to Aloha, Tawana, and Paula. Then when I get the document back, I just need to resend it back to Raymond with the new information and just have him initial off on that one little spot. If I didn't do it that way, if I sent it out to everyone at the same time and then Raymond contacts me back and says, hey man, I have a middle initial, I have to now void the entire document out from everyone. And if you're doing a PDF, well, You just put all those signatures in initial boxes, and you now have to void that document. So that document's now voided. So you have to do it all over again. So those are a real subtle difference. It doesn't happen very often, but that's why make sure you're sending it out to your listing, a buyer's agent, whoever, to make sure that they look over the document beforehand. There's another way that, in the room participants, sometimes I'll send it to the agent twice. I'll move him to the first spot and say, hey, Raymond, I sent the documents to you first to view. If everything's good, just go ahead and click OK when you're in the room. It will then send to all the different parties, and then it'll send it back to you to sign. So in that list of people, the room participants, Raymond will be first, and then Raymond will also be the third person. So it'll go to Raymond first. He'll look at the document. Everything's good to go. He just hits OK, and then it'll automatically send. If Raymond says, oh, no, hey, wait, you made a mistake here. Great. I can catch it before anyone else signs it. Does that make sense? And I really didn't want to go too deep with that, because I know that can get confusing to some people.
No, it did help. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm finding, and I don't know if this is a possibility, but when you're submitting numerous offers, you're opening a room every time you submit a new offer, because I think that's what I'm doing.
No. You are working harder, not smarter. When you're in this room here, and let me switch over to my test room so I can show you, because I have multiple in there.
Okay.
That's you've been here for the whole class, right? I mean, that's where sending that offer letter, and where is it? So your room is for your client. So you don't have to create a whole new room, because if you're creating new rooms, you're working way harder for yourself. You just have to create the room for James. That's it. Now, once the room is created, let's say that this one here, that's our proposal to purchase for 123 Main Street. All right, we don't get it. All right, well, I go back to the master copy. I change the address from 123 Main Street over to 321. Then I send it out to myself to either view or to sign, or I send the document out to my buyers to sign. When they sign it, I now get a copy over here. So now I have two copies. This is for 123 Main Street. This is for 321 Main Street. Then we lose this house. All right, well, I go back to the master copy again. I change the address. I change the price. I do the same thing over. I create an envelope. I send it out to either myself to view or myself to sign, or I send it to my clients to sign. Once they sign, I get another signed copy. Once I go under contract, once I finally get accepted, and I'm under contract, then that's where I'll come up here to the details page. And then now what I will do is I will then, where's the edit button? That's really weird. This, not sure why it's not doing it right now, but I should have an edit button here for me to be able to edit the details. But what you would do is you would click the edit button to come into this document here. I'm sorry, into the details page. And here I would, oh, there it is. Now it shows up. You click the edit button, right? And then what I would do over here is I would say, okay, so we are now under contract for 492 Walnut.
Okay, so that's what I've been doing.
But you don't have to continue to create a new room. No. All you have to do is just basically, create a new document.
Okay,
But to get a save,
I was just going to say I've been creating new rooms for each.
no.
for each property. Okay, so now I know I'm doing it.
No. Yeah. Now you can do this later on if you want to clean it up. So let's say that we've been using this room for a long time, and
Mhm,
let's say I have, 123 Main Street, and here's 321 Main Street, right?
mhm.
Well, I can just come in here and I can just go click, and I can either delete it. Well, you don't want to delete it. You want to archive it, and just archive it.
Okay,
Because what this will happen is this will just make those documents invisible here, but they'll still be in the room, but they'll be invisible. And then that way you still have a copy of it if need be, if you ever need to come back to it later on,
mhm.
but at least then you have it. You
Okay.
you get me?
Yep, so
Like
one
here.
room per person.
No, no, good.
No, I said one room per person then.
Well, one room per client. Absolutely. Yes. There's no reason for you to create multiple rooms for multiple offers. No way.
Okay,
You're creating more work for yourself.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Like here I did a contract, right? So here I have the contract, but let's say that this deal was for 123 Main Street and it goes south and we don't do it anymore. Okay, then I would just go ahead and I would right click on it. I would archive it. But on the next property, I would go back to the master copy here. And I would just use this document to recreate a new contracts.
Okay,
Now, remember when I told you guys as far as sending a screenshot? This is what the screenshot would look like. It's just that when I did I have a certain widget where when I click on it, it opens up a side window. So the text message is supposed to be back here, but when I saved it, it actually took my app that opens up on the side from my Android phone, and that's when it took the picture. But you can see here, this was a screenshot of a text message. So you can send text messages to yourself and it will upload them so you can have them as proof that you had a conversation with your buyer or seller about a particular topic. You know,
okay,
again, the craziness that's happening these days with things, you just want to cover yourself as best as you possibly can. All right.
thank you.
If that's it, if there's any other questions, I mean, you guys have a great weekend. Have a happy 4th. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't blow off any fireworks either.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
James.
Unless you're
Happy
me.
4th.
Oh,
Thank you. Happy
All right,
holidays.
guys.
All right,
All right,
bye-bye.
guys. Thanks for stopping in.
All right,
All right, bye-bye.
bye.